Girlfriend made me do all her repairs for free while her friends mocked me. Then she called me a pathetic little man who only helps because no one else would want me. So I left her to handle the expensive apartment she couldn't afford without my co-signature, and now she's homeless. I, 27M, still can't believe what happened. I work in construction. About 6 months ago, I was selling some old furniture on Facebook Marketplace. A woman named Zoe, 26F, messaged me about a dresser I had listed. We started talking and she mentioned her apartment had terrible lighting and asked if I knew anything about electrical work. I went over to check it out. Her place was a studio apartment with one overhead light that barely worked. The outlets were old and half of them didn't function properly. I spent 3 hours there that first day fixing her electrical issues for free. She made dinner and we talked. She worked at a marketing firm downtown and had just moved to the city 6 months earlier from a small town. Zoe kept texting me after that. She needed help hanging pictures, then her bathroom faucet started leaking, then her door lock was sticking. Each time I came over, we would hang out afterward. She was funny and easy to talk to. After about a month of these repair visits, we started dating officially. Things moved fast. Zoe was always talking about how independent she wanted to be and how she never wanted to rely on anyone. But every week there was something else that needed fixing. Her garbage disposal broke, her window wouldn't close properly, her kitchen cabinet door fell off its hinges. I didn't mind helping because that's what boyfriends do, right? 3 months into dating, Zoe became obsessed with this apartment complex across town. The rent was almost double what she was paying, but it had a gym, a pool, and was in a trendy neighborhood where her coworkers lived. She showed me the floor plans every day and talked about how living there would help her career. The problem was her credit score. She had defaulted on a credit card in college and had student loan payments she sometimes missed. The property management company wanted a cosigner or 6 months rent up front. Zoe didn't have 6 months rent saved up. She asked me to cosign the lease. I told her I would only do it if we moved in together, since my name would be on the paperwork anyway. She agreed immediately. Looking back, she agreed too quickly. The move was scheduled for a Saturday in July. I took the day off work and rented a truck. Zoe invited her 3 friends to help: Kelly, 25F, Megan, 27F, and Lisa, 24F. When I arrived at Zoe's old place at 8 a.m., the friends were already there drinking coffee and taking photos of each other. I loaded the truck by myself while they sat on the couch scrolling through the photos. Zoe kept saying she needed to coordinate everything from inside where it was air conditioned. When I asked for help with her heavy dresser, Kelly said she just got her nails done. Megan said she had a bad back. Lisa didn't give a reason. At the new apartment, I carried everything up to the 3rd floor alone. The friends had gone to get lunch and came back with food only for themselves. Zoe said she wasn't hungry but took half of Kelly's sandwich. I ate a granola bar from my truck. While I was assembling Zoe's bed frame, I could hear them in the living room. Kelly made a comment about how some guys just like to feel needed. They all laughed. Later, while I was fixing a loose towel rack in the bathroom, Megan said loudly that I was good for manual labor at least. More laughing. Zoe never told them to stop. She would just smile and change the subject. The apartment came with central air, but Zoe's bedroom unit wasn't working properly. She called the maintenance office 3 times that first week. They kept saying they would send someone but nobody came. By the following weekend, Zoe was complaining constantly about the heat. She bought a window AC unit and left it in the box in the living room. Saturday morning, she woke me up saying we needed to install it right away because Kelly and Megan were coming over to swim at the pool. I read the installation instructions. The unit needed to be mounted in the window with brackets that required drilling into the window frame. The lease specifically said no drilling or modifications to windows without written permission. I showed Zoe this section of the lease. She said the maintenance people were useless and nobody would know if we were careful. She said I was making it more complicated than it needed to be. Her friends were going to be there in 2 hours and she wanted the bedroom cool. I spent an hour and a half installing the AC unit. The room had 2 floor fans, but Zoe had positioned both of them to blow on her collection of plants instead of toward the bed. The temperature was 89 degrees outside and probably close to that inside. While I was drilling the brackets, sweat was dripping into my eyes. My shirt was soaked. Zoe sat on the bed with her laptop, ordering groceries online. Kelly and Megan arrived halfway through the installation and went straight to the kitchen to make drinks. When I was tightening the final screws, I could hear them talking in the living room. Zoe's voice carried clearly. She said I wasn't installing the AC because I loved her. She said I was doing it because I was scared no one else would ever want me. She called me a pathetic little man. Kelly laughed out loud. Megan made some comment about men with low self-esteem. Lisa, who had just arrived, asked what was so funny and they filled her in. More laughing. I finished the installation and tested the unit. It worked perfectly. Zoe came into the bedroom and turned the temperature down to 65 degrees. She looked at the AC, then at me, and told me to go fix the bathroom shelf that was crooked and not to mess it up like I had messed up our 3-month anniversary dinner. For context, our anniversary dinner had been fine except the restaurant lost our reservation and we had to wait an hour for a table. I had made the reservation 2 weeks in advance and confirmed it that morning. The hostess apologized and comped our appetizers. Zoe spent the entire meal complaining about how I should have had a backup plan. Standing there in her bedroom, listening to her friends still laughing in the next room, something switched off in my head. I let out a laugh. Not a bitter laugh or a sarcastic laugh. A genuine laugh of disbelief. The 3 friends went quiet in the living room. Zoe asked what was funny. I didn't answer. I unplugged my drill, put it back in the case, and grabbed my tool bag. I walked past the 3 friends, who were all staring at me, opened the apartment door, and left. My phone started buzzing before I got to the parking garage. Text after text from Zoe. Just question marks at first, then asking where I was going, then telling me to come back and finish the shelf. I drove home and sat in my kitchen. My phone kept buzzing. Zoe sent me a screenshot of her Instagram story, which was a photo of the AC unit with the caption "When you have to do everything yourself." She deleted it 20 minutes later and posted a different photo of her and her friends by the pool. That night she sent me a long text about how I was being dramatic and childish. She said her friends were just joking around and I needed to learn to take a joke. She said I had embarrassed her by leaving without saying goodbye. I didn't respond to any of her messages. The next morning, I called my dad and told him what happened. He listened to the whole story without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a minute. Then he said I shouldn't let people use me and I shouldn't let them think they could get away with it. I started making a list in my head. The lease I co-signed. The internet bill that was in my name. The security deposit I paid. The kitchen table I bought because her old one was broken. The coffee maker, the bathroom mirror, the living room lamp. Zoe's behavior that day wasn't a one-time thing. It was just the most obvious example of how she saw me. I was useful. I was there to solve problems and make her life easier. I wasn't her boyfriend. I was her handyman who she happened to sleep with. I decided I was done being useful. Update 1. The response to my original post was overwhelming. A lot of people shared similar stories and gave me advice. Some people said I was overreacting, but most understood why I left. I wanted to update everyone on what happened next. The morning after I walked out, I woke up to several text messages. Zoe had sent me photos of her Wi-Fi settings with messages saying the internet wasn't working and asking me to call the provider. Megan had texted me asking if I could help remove a couch that weekend. Both messages acted like nothing had happened. I didn't respond to either of them. 2 days later, I ran into Lisa at the grocery store. She approached me while I was picking out produce and said I needed to apologize to Zoe. She said what happened wasn't that serious and I was making Zoe look bad in front of her friends. I looked at Lisa and started laughing the same way I had laughed in Zoe's bedroom. I put my oranges in my cart and walked away while she was still talking. That afternoon I logged into the internet account. The service was in my name and the monthly payment came out of my bank account automatically. I changed the Wi-Fi password and sent Zoe a text message. I told her the internet bill was due in 2 weeks and if she wanted to keep the service, she needed to pay it. If not, I would cancel the account. She called me immediately. I didn't answer. She called 6 more times. I turned my phone off. The next day I called the apartment complex and spoke to the property manager. I explained that I needed to be removed from the lease because Zoe and I were no longer together. The manager said they could remove me, but since I was the primary applicant with better credit, the lease would need to be restructured. He explained that without my income on the application, Zoe would need to qualify on her own. Based on her salary and credit score, she would need a different cosigner or the rent would increase to market rate for a single occupant. Market rate was $400 more per month than what we had been paying. I told him to go ahead and remove me from the lease. He said he would send Zoe the paperwork and she would have 30 days to find a new cosigner or agree to the higher rent. That evening, Zoe showed up at my apartment. She pounded on the door for 5 minutes before I opened it. She pushed past me into my living room and started yelling about the internet and the lease. She said I was trying to ruin her life over a stupid joke. She picked up a picture frame from my coffee table and threw it across the room. The glass shattered against the wall. She grabbed books from my bookshelf and dropped them on the floor. When I told her to leave, she slapped my hand away and said she wasn't going anywhere until I fixed everything. I walked to my front door and held it open. I told her if she didn't leave, I would call the police. She stood there for another minute, then stormed out. She slammed the door so hard that my neighbor came out to check if everything was okay. The next few days were quiet. Then Zoe started a group chat with me, Kelly, Megan, and Lisa. She wrote a long message about how I was financially abusing her by removing my name from the lease and cutting off the internet. She said I was trying to make her homeless because my ego was hurt. I screenshot the lease agreement, which clearly showed both of our names and signatures. I also screenshot my bank statements showing the internet payments, the security deposit, and the first month's rent. I posted all of these in the group chat without any commentary. Kelly left the group chat immediately. Megan didn't respond. Lisa sent one message saying this was between Zoe and me and she didn't want to be involved. An hour later, Zoe sent me a Venmo request for $50. The description said repair costs for damaged shelf. I screenshot the Venmo request and posted it in the group chat with the message invoice for services rendered. Lisa also left the group chat. Megan still didn't say anything, but I could see she was reading the messages. The internet got shut off a week later because Zoe never paid the bill. She sent me angry texts about how I was sabotaging her work from home days. I didn't respond. 3 days after that, the property manager called me. He said Zoe had missed the deadline to find a new cosigner and had refused to sign the new lease at the higher rent. She had been served with a 30-day notice to vacate. I asked if there was anything else I needed to do. He said no, I was completely removed from the lease and had no further responsibility for the apartment. That weekend, I got a text from my friend Jake, 29M, who worked at the same marketing firm as Zoe. He said Zoe had been asking people about me, trying to get them to reach out and convince me to help her with the apartment situation. Jake said she was telling people I was refusing to pay rent and leaving her to handle everything alone. Jake knew the real story because I had told him what happened. He said he set the record straight with a few coworkers, but Zoe was still spreading her version to anyone who would listen. I showed Jake the screenshots of the lease and bank statements. He said I should send them to him so he could share them if anyone else asked about the situation. 2 weeks later, Jake texted me again. He said Zoe had been complaining at work about her living situation and mentioned that her ex-boyfriend was making things difficult. Their mutual supervisor had asked Zoe if she needed any accommodations for her work schedule while she dealt with personal issues. Zoe had apparently told the supervisor that I was harassing her and making it impossible for her to focus at work. The supervisor asked if Zoe needed help filing a police report or if the company should take any action. Jake said he happened to be in the break room when this conversation took place. He showed the supervisor the screenshots I had sent him and explained what really happened. The supervisor told Zoe that based on the documentation, it looked like she was dealing with the natural consequences of a breakup, not harassment. Zoe stopped talking about me at work after that conversation. I haven't heard from her directly in over a week. Megan texted me yesterday asking if I wanted to get coffee and talk about everything. I deleted the message without responding. My dad was right. I shouldn't let people use me, and I shouldn't let them think they can get away with it. Update 2: I didn't expect to post another update, but some things happened that I thought people would want to hear about. First, the apartment situation resolved itself. Zoe moved out at the end of last month. According to Jake, she found a studio apartment closer to downtown that costs about the same as her half of the rent at the old place. She had to give up the pool and the gym, but she's back to living within her means. I thought that would be the end of it, but Zoe wasn't ready to let things go. About 3 weeks ago, I started getting friend requests on Facebook from people I didn't recognize. All of them had mutual friends with Zoe. I didn't accept any of the requests, but I could see some of their profiles had posts about toxic masculinity and men who abandon their responsibilities. Jake told me Zoe was still talking about me at work, but now she was focusing on how I left her to deal with everything alone. She wasn't mentioning the co-signing or the bills anymore. Just that I walked out during a difficult time and didn't help her move. I ignored all of this until Zoe crossed a line that I wasn't expecting. She messaged my sister Emma, 24F, on Instagram. Emma lives in another state and had only met Zoe twice when she visited me. Zoe sent Emma a long message about how worried she was about me. She said I had been acting erratically and she was concerned about my mental health. Zoe told Emma that I had been making threats and she was scared to be alone. She said she thought I needed professional help and maybe Emma could convince me to talk to someone. Emma called me immediately after getting the message. She was confused because nothing Zoe said matched the brother she knew. Emma asked me what was really going on. I told Emma the whole story from the beginning. I sent her the same screenshots I had sent to Jake. Emma was quiet while she looked through everything. Then Emma got mad. Not at me, but at Zoe. Emma said what Zoe had done was manipulative and scary. She said trying to turn family members against each other was crossing a major boundary. Emma screenshot Zoe's message and sent it to me. Then she blocked Zoe on all social media platforms. But Zoe wasn't done with my family. 2 days later, she found my dad on Facebook and sent him a message. She told my dad that I was struggling with anger issues and had damaged her property during our breakup. She said she was worried I might hurt myself or someone else. My dad called me that evening. He wasn't confused like Emma had been. He was angry. He said anyone who would lie to someone's family was showing their true character. He blocked Zoe immediately and didn't even screenshot her message. The family situation made me realize that Zoe wasn't just embarrassed or hurt. She was trying to isolate me and make me look unstable. This felt like more than just post-breakup drama. I decided to document everything in case I needed it later. I saved all of her text messages, took screenshots of the social media posts her friends were making, and wrote down dates and times of every interaction. That turned out to be a good decision. Last week, I got a call from someone who said she was Zoe's sister, Monica, 28F. I had never met Monica, but Zoe had mentioned her a few times. Monica said Zoe had told her I was harassing her and she wanted me to stop contacting her. I told Monica I hadn't contacted Zoe in over 6 weeks. Monica seemed surprised. She said Zoe had been showing her text messages and phone calls that were supposedly from me. I told Monica that if Zoe was receiving harassing messages, they weren't coming from me. I offered to send Monica screenshots of my message history to prove I hadn't been contacting Zoe. Monica said that wasn't necessary, but she asked me to explain my side of what had happened. I gave her the short version of the story. I didn't send any screenshots or try to make Zoe look bad. I just explained that we had broken up and I had removed myself from our shared financial obligations. Monica was quiet for a long time. Then she said Zoe had told her a very different story. She said she needed to talk to Zoe and figure out what was really going on. 2 days after that conversation, Monica called me back. She said she had confronted Zoe about the inconsistencies in her story. Zoe had admitted that the harassing messages were actually from a different ex-boyfriend who had been bothering her for months. Monica said Zoe had been using my name because she thought it would get more sympathy from family and friends. People knew Zoe and I had just broken up, so it seemed believable that I would be the one causing problems. Monica apologized for believing Zoe's story without checking the facts first. She said Zoe had a pattern of exaggerating situations when she wanted attention or support. This conversation with Monica explained a lot of things. It explained why Zoe's friends had been so quick to leave the group chat when I posted evidence. It explained why Zoe had been so confident spreading her version of events at work. She had been mixing truth with lies in a way that was hard to challenge. Monica said she was going to talk to the rest of Zoe's family and set the record straight. She also said she was going to tell Zoe to stop using my name when she talked about her problems. I haven't heard anything from Zoe or about Zoe since Monica and I talked. Jake said she's been quiet at work and hasn't mentioned me in over a week. I'm hoping this is actually the end of it this time. Update 3. This will be my last update because everything is finally settled. 3 weeks ago, I thought Zoe had moved on and the whole situation was behind us. I was wrong. I got a call at work from someone in HR at Zoe's company. The woman said she was calling to verify employment information for a background check. She said Zoe had listed me as a character reference for a new job application. I was surprised because Zoe had never asked my permission to use me as a reference. The HR person asked me how long I had known Zoe and what I could tell her about Zoe's character and work ethic. I told the truth. I said I had dated Zoe for about 6 months and that I couldn't recommend her for a position that required reliability or accountability. I explained that she had difficulty meeting financial obligations and tended to blame other people when things went wrong. The HR person asked me to elaborate, so I gave specific examples. I mentioned that Zoe had defaulted on rent payments and had tried to manipulate family members when she didn't get her way. I kept my answers professional and factual. The HR person thanked me and said they would be in touch if they needed any additional information. That afternoon, I got a text from Zoe. Just 2 words, "Thanks for nothing." I didn't respond, but I knew she must not have gotten the job. 2 days later, Jake texted me with news from work. Zoe had been served with eviction papers at her new apartment. Apparently, she had missed 2 rent payments and the landlord was starting the eviction process. Jake said Zoe had been asking coworkers if anyone knew of available rooms or apartments. She was also asking if anyone could co-sign a lease for her. Nobody volunteered. The same week, I ran into Megan at a coffee shop. She was alone, which was unusual because she and Zoe used to go everywhere together. I was ordering my drink when she approached me. Megan said she wanted to apologize for what had happened at Zoe's apartment. She said she had been caught up in the group dynamic and hadn't thought about how her comments were affecting me. She said what Zoe had said about me that day was cruel and unnecessary. I thanked Megan for the apology. She asked if Zoe and I might be able to work things out. I told her that ship had sailed a long time ago. Megan said she understood. Then she said something that surprised me. She said Zoe had been asking her and Kelly for money to help with rent and moving expenses. Both of them had said no. Megan explained that Zoe had burned through most of her friendships over the past few months. She had asked different people for different types of help and had gotten angry when they couldn't or wouldn't provide it. Kelly had been asked to co-sign a lease. Lisa had been asked for a loan. Even Jake had been approached about letting Zoe stay on his couch temporarily. Everyone had declined for various reasons. Megan said Zoe was starting to realize that the people she had counted on weren't going to rescue her from the situation she had created. Last week, I got the final piece of closure I hadn't even known I was waiting for. My phone rang at 11 p.m. on Thursday. The caller ID showed the name of Zoe's apartment complex. I answered because I thought it might be related to the old lease somehow. It was a security guard from the building. He said a woman had been in the parking lot for 2 hours, sitting in her car and crying. When they approached her, she had given them my name and phone number and asked them to call me. The guard said the woman claimed to be my girlfriend and said she was locked out of her apartment. He wanted to verify that I could come get her. I told the guard that the woman was not my girlfriend and I would not be coming to get her. I said if she was having a genuine emergency, he should call the police or emergency services. The guard said he would handle it from there and hung up. I never found out exactly what happened that night, but Jake told me the next day that Zoe hadn't come to work. Her supervisor had tried calling and texting but hadn't gotten a response. On Monday, Zoe's supervisor got an email from Zoe saying she was moving back to her hometown and wouldn't be returning to work. She didn't give 2 weeks' notice or explain the situation. Jake said the office was relieved rather than upset. Zoe's work had been inconsistent for the past month and she had been difficult to work with. That was 2 weeks ago. I haven't heard anything about Zoe since then. Jake said someone from HR called her emergency contact to make sure she was okay, and her sister Monica confirmed that Zoe had moved back home. I'm glad she found a solution, even if it wasn't the solution she wanted. Looking back at everything that happened, I realized that walking out of her apartment that day was the right decision. Zoe had shown me exactly how she saw me and exactly how she treated people who cared about her. I gave her multiple chances to treat me with basic respect. She chose not to. I gave her multiple opportunities to take responsibility for her choices. She chose to blame me instead. Some people suggested I should have tried harder to work things out or been more understanding of her situation. But I think there's a difference between supporting someone through a difficult time and enabling someone who refuses to change their behavior. Zoe never apologized for what she said that day. She never acknowledged that her friend's comments were hurtful. She never took responsibility for her financial problems or her housing situation. Instead, she tried to manipulate my family, lied to potential employers about my character, and used my name to gain sympathy from people who didn't know the full story. I'm not proud of every decision I made during this situation. Changing the Wi-Fi password was petty. Posting those screenshots in the group chat was probably unnecessary. But I don't regret standing up for myself. I learned that some people will take as much as you're willing to give, and they'll always ask for more. I learned that being helpful and being useful are two different things. And I learned that walking away from someone who doesn't respect you isn't giving up, it's setting boundaries. Zoe is back in her hometown, probably telling her version of this story to anyone who will listen. That's fine. The people who know me know the truth. I'm done being anyone's free handyman service. I'm done with people who think kindness is weakness and generosity is stupidity. I'm out.